Welcome to the Pump Take Sports Show. We're back. We were on a little hiatus there. Life gets busy, as everyone knows, but we're back to talk about the most anticipated game, which ended up being a little bit, I'm not going to call it disappointing, but people are calling it disappointing out there as it didn't live up to the hype of the Jordan versus LeBron game, you know, the new king versus the old king. So we're going to talk about a few things in this episode. First, we're just going to talk about kind of like the game, the X's and O's, the game plan, how the Chiefs got outcoached, which is what Aidan wants to talk about, which is surprising. And then we're going to kind of pivot a little bit into talking about Brady and, having 7 rings and where does that kind of rank him among all sports goats, things like that. And then talk about the Chiefs a little bit, kind of moving forward after a Super Bowl loss.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Aidan, do you want to take it away here with just some of your thoughts generally about the game itself?
Yeah, I think a lot of people came away with the same thought that I did, and it was like in the first quarter, I remember thinking like, "Wow, this game plan is spectacular."
Yeah.
Particularly on the defensive side, it's like obviously when you look at the result, none of us ever thought the Chiefs that a team could do that to the Chiefs.
No.
Like I didn't think that was in like when I was thinking about the outcomes of this game. The Bucks blowing out the Chiefs was not even something that crossed my mind.
Yeah, we should preface too by saying that me and you both bet on the Chiefs.
Yeah, I have something to say about that later when we get into Brady, like why I think at least why I picked the Chiefs and why I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And probably you were having some of those same thoughts. But yeah, just back to the game plan. The Todd Bowles, man, what a defensive coach that guy is. Like
coach, yeah.
He's working with some good personnel, but yeah, that game plan was spectacular. Just playing too high safety, taking away the deep ball, not letting them, take the top off the defense like the Chiefs love to do, and
letting his linebackers play, letting his linebackers actually do the work in which they're there to do, right? Like credit to Devin White and Levante David, man. Like they held their own against that team, and it almost seemed like the only throw that the Chiefs could get going was that Kelsey in the middle of the zone where he like falls over after like 15 yards. They got that a couple times, but outside of that throw, nothing was working for them on the outside. Like, I mean, obviously they didn't score a touchdown, but credit to those linebackers for really like suffocating that middle of the field and allowing the pass rushers to just really do their job.
Yeah. I mean, the linebackers especially, they definitely popped off the field because the Chiefs were kind of like once the deep ball was taken away and we weren't seeing that, they were trying to do a lot of short stuff at first, and you were seeing like the Bucks weren't respecting the run game at all, and that was 100% the right way to play it.
Yep.
And you were just seeing them flying to the receivers like on those short routes. They were just all over the place. And just the game plan was so smart. I can't say that enough. But like you were saying, everybody executed on the Buccaneers side of things. And on the offensive side of the ball, exact same thing, but to a higher degree. Just the idea of the Bucks offense not trying to do too much.
Yeah.
Like they came in with this game plan, and this is why I'll talk about it a little bit later. Why the game plan was, why I think it was a little risky, but I saw it right away. They had an idea of what they wanted to do, and it was all predicated on stopping the Chiefs offense, and the Bucks offense just did its thing.
And simplicity is the Bucks offense name of the game, right? And that's kind of what was so cool about it, was to see like, holy shit, they're actually stopping the Chiefs, and they don't have to throw for 70-yard crazy Mike Evans bombs. They can just move their way down the field the way Brady likes to do when he was with the Patriots. Yeah. And you saw them just play a simple offensive game that ended up winning with like, what was it, 31 points?
31, yeah. It was 31-9 was the final score.
And I was saying to Kale, who's a Chiefs fan, I was saying to him at partway through the game, like, if you were to tell Brady that he only has to score 31 and he's going to win by 2 scores, he would have said, what the hell are you talking about? You know, like to really give the Bucs defense credit for how much they actually stopped the Chiefs offense. You can't do it enough. We haven't seen them stopped like that in Mahomes' entire career.
I don't think it'll ever happen again either. But yeah, as I keep saying, I think like I'll talk a little bit why I think it came together the way it did, like what the glue of this whole thing was. But to go back to the coaching staff, I've never been a big Bruce Arians fan.
Mhm.
Like I'm sure he's a tremendous guy. Like from
Yeah.
everything I've seen, he seems like a really solid guy. But as a coach, I've always thought he's kind of been overrated, like a little bit too old school for my taste. But man, to his credit, his coaching staff
Yeah.
coached circles around, one of the
He
best
did.
coaches in the league. I was never expecting that
And
to happen.
do you have an insight on maybe why? Because I was watching, obviously I've watched so many Chiefs games this year and Bucks games, and I've seen the Bucks dominate, teams like Green Bay and other really competitive teams. Like look at the Bucks just Super Bowl run, right? Any team in there, you could just argue like they kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Stepped on them with a little bit of a heavy boot per se, and that coaching over the Chiefs was just so impressive. I couldn't figure out why the hell it was working so well against Andy Reid.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to put my finger on because, I mean, an NFL season is such a small sample size. It's really hard to glean, the meaning behind certain things like that because you look at a lot of games that the Bucks played during the season, like the Saints game, and it just felt like they were never going to come together. And then there were other games like the Packers game where they looked like a perfect team and their roster was living up to expectations. So it's really hard to say. I think a lot of it is what I want to talk about later with Tom Brady and the element that he brings. I don't know if you want to get into that. I think I've said the one thing actually I do want to say before, so I'll kind of answer that question, what I think at least later. But I do want to say that the game plan that they did come in with the coaching staff, I think it needed to be executed absolutely perfectly. And I think it was really risky because of that. So I obviously I can't say for sure that they didn't have a backup plan.
Risky in the sense that if it didn't work, the Chiefs are going to just run up on you and you're not going to be able to get back in the game.
Exactly. Like if for some reason the Chiefs like had a counterpunch, and again, I can't say because maybe the Bucks had a backup plan if that were to happen.
They never had to use it, which is
exactly. They never had to use it. But it was all predicated on the Chiefs who can strike at any time, not being able to figure things out. It seemed like, and I guess that's why I'm not an NFL coach because it worked to perfection. But I wouldn't have tried that. I wouldn't have even thought, like, it would never have crossed my mind thinking like, oh, my defense can stop the Chiefs. I would have just assumed that they can't and tried something else. But that's why I'm saying credit to them. Like, I don't even think the Chiefs expected that to be a possibility, which is probably part of the reason why they lost, because they were never expecting to be stopped that way.
Absolutely. And you can look at the offensive line issues, obviously, that they had, because that's kind of been a big talking point of people that are saying, why did the Chiefs lose? Well, the offense, they were missing both tackles, right? And there was this number, which I'm sure people have seen at this point on Instagram, that was saying that Mahomes rushed for a total of, if you count his like lateral yards, like his, moving from side to side, it's like 497 yards. The guy
That's ridiculous.
And I was also saying to Kale at the same time that you look at the throws that he was still making, even though he was on the run. I mean, there's that picture, right, of him laying down, like the throw like that, where he's like on like pretty much on a 90-degree angle. And
I'm not exaggerating, man. That was maybe the greatest throw I've ever seen. Like, I have no idea. It was like a perfect pass too.
And it hit
like if it was like a duck.
Head.
If it was like a duck, that's one thing, but it was literally like he was standing upright. It would have been, you couldn't have thrown it better.
Unbelievable. And I jokingly said, that was a little late in the game, but I jokingly said, if they come back, that's the picture. That's the picture that's on the front of the Sports Illustrated. That's the picture that's on the front of the World Champ newspaper article. Unbelievable player. And the thing is, too, you can't put that much of it on him, right? Like, not only were the Chiefs not expecting it, but he was still whipping the ball down the field and trying to get something to happen. His receivers just couldn't. I mean, Kelsey had a pretty good game if you actually look at the box score, but he wasn't breaking the game the way he normally would through the regular season. Tyreek Hill was pretty much irrelevant in the entire game. They pretty much took him right out of the game plan. And none of the other guys on the team, like Darrell Williams, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Demarcus Robinson, Samuel, none of them did anything. Nothing of Clyde Edwards-Helaire had some nice runs here and there, but no, they couldn't string together that usual Chiefs first down, where they just break you in like a minute. So
I haven't gone back to like rewatch it or anything, but like from my first impression, I didn't think Mahomes really played bad at all. That's despite the fact that he was basically from halfway through the first quarter or whatever it was, when the first Gronk touchdown was scored. Like he basically had to like throw away. He basically was trying to play hero ball for the
Yeah.
whole game. Like
Yeah.
whatever game plan they had was pretty much thrown in the garbage pretty quickly. And so just for him to look as good as he did with his surrounding core playing, so poorly, I think it was like, I mean, I think it just demonstrated how great he is, and
Absolutely. But isn't
he'll
that
be back.
the question of, oh, he'll be back. But isn't that also the question of, like, why didn't Andy Reid adapt at any point in this game? Like,
Oh
why
yeah, this game is on Andy Reid,
totally, right? And
in my opinion.
that's the question that I was like kind of asking myself is like, yeah, you're right. The Bucs, they stopped them hard in the first half of that game. But you're telling me going into halftime that they don't readjust anything that they're doing? Like, why was
Yeah.
there no adjustment to how they were going to play offense coming into the second half? Because it seemed like Mahomes was playing hero ball for 60 minutes, and I just didn't understand why.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll obviously never know. And I want to just clarify, when I say it's on Andy Reid, I mean that's taking into account that like we were saying, he was missing his two starting tackles, and obviously Laurent Duvernay-Tardif missed the whole season as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the O line was in shambles. But that's really never seemed to like the Chiefs O line when everyone's healthy isn't like top 5 anyways. Like
No.
I feel like there should have been an adjustment somewhere, and instead Mahomes felt like he was just hung out to dry the entire game by everyone.
Absolutely. And Andy Reid's not going to go into a Super Bowl making excuses for having two O linemen out of the game. He's going to, what everyone would have expected to happen. I think why me and you both bet on the Chiefs is that they adapt to that and then say, okay, we're going to adjust our game plan accordingly to these losses. So there's no excuses why we're going to lose this game.
Because the O line isn't the reason why the Chiefs are amazing.
No.
Anyways, like I don't know. I was never expecting. I mean, I guess the Bucs D line. I mean, you kind of could have seen that come. Like it crossed my mind for sure before the game, but I was like, the Chiefs will just figure that out. Like they'll have a way to get around that, but they just didn't.
And usually, like part of that is just Patty being able to get it out so quick to someone down the field that it doesn't matter how hard you're rushing him. Like
he just will scramble out side of the pocket and run sideways, and it doesn't matter what the O-line's doing then.
Exactly. But at the same time, another thing that I noticed before we get into talking about some Brady stuff is that Mahomes was running, like every time there would be a lot of pressure, he would do that usual scramble right outside, and he would run pretty far back. And what the problem with that was is that normally when I think he has his normal O-line in there, they're able to adapt a little bit to his tendencies of movement, and they can kind of move with him to try and provide a little more blocking. But in this game, he would run outside, and his two shitty tackles were lost without a map. These guys were just standing. There would be 4 Bucs players closer to Mahomes than there would be one Chiefs offensive lineman. So it would be he would be scrambling, not just scrambling, like running for his life in a lot of cases where he was just throwing up a prayer, So there was a few reasons, kind of behind the Chiefs' downfall in this game.
I think it was just a masterclass in everything going wrong. It actually reminded me a lot of the Green Bay game, like not exactly in terms of like what the problems were for Green Bay, because they were a little different. And Rodgers didn't really play as well as Mahomes did in the Super Bowl, I don't think, in that one game where Green Bay, like I'm talking about the regular season Green Bay Tampa Bay game, where it was just like at that point in the season after Green Bay lost, I was kind of like, everything went so wrong for Green Bay in that game. Like they're never going to look as bad as that for the rest of the season. And it just the Chiefs' worst game came at the worst possible time.
Exactly. You roll the dice on that game. You roll a 10-sided or a 2-sided dice 10 times. It's not coming up Tampa Bay that strongly every time.
I think if it was played tomorrow, it would be a lot closer.
Oh, absolutely. And you kind of feel a little bit they won last year, right? So like, you don't feel super bad for them, but you do feel a bit bad for Mahomes that nothing really went his way in that game at all. But exactly. I agree with you, man. It's on Andy and it's on kind of the coaching staff as a whole that there was no adaptation in that game whatsoever to keep up with what Tampa Bay was doing. They got coached by Arians. Like they got to live with that. They got to live with that, man. Like Super Bowl 55 was written by Bruce Arians and Tom Brady. So, and Todd Bowles and Brian Leftwich. Like that whole coaching staff just did an incredible job.
Yeah, they did a great job. And I think kind of like to segue into what I think we're going to talk about next. The outcome of the game is huge, and it's one of the reasons why I feel so bad for Mahomes, because he kind of left it all out on the line. And when we're talking in terms of legacy, obviously there's been a lot of talk leading up to this game about Mahomes and if he can catch Brady in terms of the GOAT debate. And I was saying this to Parfait before the game. Obviously, like we've been saying, we both bet on the Chiefs. I didn't think that the Buccaneers would win this game, but I thought, if they did, I was saying if they did, this puts Brady in pretty much an untouchable territory for Mahomes at the very least, because even if, let's say, Mahomes somehow gets to 7 Super Bowls and ties Brady. Let's say Brady doesn't win another one and Mahomes gets to 7. They're tied. Brady will always have in the debate that he actually beat Mahomes in one of the Super Bowls. So like even if Mahomes has this implausible run where he wins 6 more Super Bowls somehow, which is like hard to do on its own, not impossible, obviously.
Yeah.
That is going to be so tough to overcome. So I mean, I don't think even in our lifetime we're going to see a quarterback touch Brady in the GOAT debate.
I 100% agree. I couldn't have said it any better. It was something that Romo was kind of saying in the wrap up of the game that, 6-2, there is a chance, right?
Yeah.
You make it to 7 if Mahomes makes it to 7 over the next 12 to 13 years, he makes it to 7. He already has 2. He only needs to win half of those to kind of be in the, I almost have as much as Brady. I have as much as Brady, but I'm better than Brady, so I'm the GOAT. There, that kind of argument could come up.
Yeah.
7-1, even if you make it to 6 to 7 more Super Bowls, you have to win all of them. Yeah. You have to win all of them. And, Tony was saying it really well on the broadcast that the odds of having a Super Bowl run from the day you're a wild card team, or you get a bye in whatever, from the day you're a playoff team to the final second of that Super Bowl game, you not only need to be an incredible team, you need a lot to go your way. You can't miss the field goal. You need to recover that one crazy onside kick. Your receiver needs to make that one diving one-handed grab. And all these things need to compound into you having a successful Super Bowl run. It's the Chiefs are a better team than I think me and you would agree that you roll that dice once again 10 times. The Chiefs are winning more than the Bucs are, right? But the Bucs won the Super Bowl, so you need a lot to go right. And teams, as time goes on, will start to become more and more and more ran their offense like the way the Chiefs run their offense, and it'll be harder for the Chiefs to. Right now, the Chiefs are so much ahead of everyone else in their game plan, in their offense, in their talent, in their firepower that no one else can really compete with, right now. But you give it 6 years, the NFL changes a lot in 6 years, right? And so can Mahomes really ever catch up to Brady? I don't think it'll be a very hard mountain to climb.
That's a great point you were just making that I had never thought about before. Obviously, it's impossible to say. Like the Chiefs seem like such a unicorn, even now after they lost that game, that it's really hard to say if anybody will. Like, because obviously you're not going to find another Mahomes just like that. But you make a good point. The Chiefs are ahead in a lot of ways that, we always talk about how teams they can't get past their own mistakes sometimes. Eventually teams will kind of catch up to some of the things that the Chiefs are doing in the margin to be one of the best teams, like analytics wise, like the way that they will literally just throw away the run in certain games. Like eventually teams are going to catch up to that, and those the gap is going to close eventually. Whether how much it closes is up for debate. We don't know that at this point, but that's an interesting point. And if we have time, I want to talk about some things about the Chiefs in terms of their roster and going forward. That's if we have time. But what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, in terms of the whole going forward and how the NFL is going to catch up thing. If I'm the Chargers, right? If I'm running the show in LA, I'm drafting everything for Herb that I can possibly give this guy to just create an offense that's as high octane as the Chiefs. I will try and catch up to what they do good, right? Let Derwin and Bosa and Ingram do what they do on the other side of the ball. But you are LA cool now, as Jeff Feinberg from the Pat Mayo Experience says. Be LA cool. Organizations are going to start to have the guts to really try and do what the Chiefs do well. And I think, can the Chiefs over the next, they just did it first, right? They did it first before anyone knew what the hell they were doing. You give him 6 years, like how old's Kelsey at that point, right? Where's Tyreek Hill's
Yeah.
contract going to look like? What's Chris Jones? Is Chris Jones even going to be good in 6 years? You know, so you ask all these questions about how the Mahomes will still be there.
Yeah.
But it's everything around them that how are they going to keep this going over a 10-year period? And I'm talking about when I'm comparing him to winning as much as Brady, right? Which was the conversation if it was 6-2, which it's not. But if it was 6-2, it's like, well, he's going to have to make it to 7 more, right?
Yeah.
To pass Brady. But that's kind of what I think about it in that sense. But yeah, it's
it's definitely something we're going to be keeping an eye on. And in this game, kind of changed the tide of it. Last year at this time, I was kind of thinking like it's just going to be tough to even catch the Patriots with their 6 rings for the Chiefs to do. And then this year, like the Chiefs just making it to the Super Bowl as easily as they did, I was kind of like, oh, if anyone has a chance.
Yeah.
But now there's an uphill battle for sure. But yeah, if you want to transition to talking about Tom Brady, I've got a lot to say. About that.
Sure.
I don't know if you want to start or not.
Yeah, I mean, I can just kind of throw something out there and we can just talk about it. Is that sure. I think with 7, everyone who watches this and follows sports follows Bleacher Report and they follow the score, so they see all these graphics and things being talked about. But I personally believe that what Brady's accomplished in his time in the NFL is the greatest sports accomplishment in terms of GOAT that's ever happened now. Jordan has 6, Brady has 7. Brady did it with 2 teams. You can go down the list here, but I think this Tampa Bay Super Bowl win was the most important out of Brady's 7, because he did it without Belichick. He did it off the Patriots. He did it in his first year with another team. He did it with beating Mahomes, beating Rodgers, like you look at the quarterbacks that he beat going into this thing. He
didn't have it easy.
No, and you can say, I often make jokes about Brady a lot. Everyone does. It's just kind of what you do. But you can say that luck always goes this guy's way, to get Washington and all that stuff. But no,
at some point, it's more than luck.
It's more than luck, right? 7 championships. There's this crazy thing that in the past 20 years, he's made 10 Super Bowls, right? And so he has a higher percentage chance of going to the Super Bowl than Curry has to hit a 3 at Curry's 3-point percentage, which is 43.7%. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's
the guy's in 10 Super Bowls. You look at the other GOATs of the sport right now, like Mahomes, given Mahomes is still young. Mahomes has 1. Rodgers has 1. You look at Breeze, Roethlisberger, Eli. You look at all these greats. None of them have more than 3. None of them.
Yeah.
Brady's got 7. How is anyone ever going to catch up to him? And he's still going, So anyway, that's just what I'm throwing out there to talk about a little bit.
No, yeah. I mean, obviously, like you were saying, everybody has seen this kind of thing. I mean, there's always a new Brady stat that you see and you're just like, holy shit. Like, it just really, like the Steph Curry one, it just kind of puts it in perspective. You're just like, man, we're never going to see anything like this again.
Yeah.
But I think you made a good point in there. I don't know if I would say that it's his most important Super Bowl, but I think it's his most impressive one. And I've heard a lot of there's a lot of Brady haters out there. Obviously, you'll get that when you're as great as he is. But a lot of people I've seen say oh, he went to a super team, and I'm just like, man, you must not have been around when he signed, because it was a huge risk. At the time, I thought it was not a good decision.
Yeah.
A, for him to leave the Patriots, and B, for him to go to the Buccaneers. Not that they didn't have a good roster, because obviously they did. Yeah, cross conference. Not that they didn't have a good roster, right? Because they had a great receiving core already. I was just concerned about, because he had more of a chance, I felt to hurt his legacy than he did to help it.
Yeah.
Just because he's taking that, he was all ready to go. He didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
That was kind of what. So all he could really do is either he does what he did, or he risks people saying, oh, it was Belichick the whole time.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And he bet on himself, and it totally paid off.
And I saw a tweet that you actually put out that I really liked that said, it was something that it had to do with the Giants, of course, but it was talking about how 3 years ago, I think, the Buccaneers drafted Vita Vea in the first round, 1 pick behind the Giants. Is that right? 1 pick.
It was Devin White, 1 pick ahead of the Giants.
That's what it was. Sorry. And so you look at how, I'm not going to call the Buccaneers bad, but they were no super team. We want to talk about super teams. The Buccaneers over the last 5 years are not a super team. Brady didn't walk in to
No, he didn't. Sorry, I just wanted to say really quick. The roster is probably the best in the league now because of all the development that's happened and all the pieces added since. But he didn't walk into that.
No, Devin White has to be good. Antonio Winfield Jr. has to be good. Like the whole pass rush has to be good. The offensive line has to be able to adapt to what Brady wants. The receivers have to be able to adapt to the way Brady plays. Arians and the coaching, there's a lot of pieces that worked for them over the course of the year. But when he signed to Tampa, if you were, a lot of people say they called it, but if you really actually called it back then, you were not saying something that was, as guaranteed as what, we might look at in the future with this team and Brady, because back then it was not a guaranteed thing.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people, there was some people that were saying oh, Super Bowl, but I feel like there was good reasons to doubt the decision. And obviously Brady proved everyone wrong, but I just wanted to, I think it's important to, clarify, he was not walking into a guaranteed Super Bowl to a team that was just needed to get rid of Jameis and then they would be fine. No, there was pieces, and a lot of the pieces that came there only because Brady was there. Gronk wouldn't have come if Brady didn't show up. Antonio Brown wouldn't have come. And maybe even Fournette to a certain degree. He probably wouldn't have signed with the Buccaneers if they weren't building this complete team. Would they have, traded up to draft Tristan Wirfs if they didn't need that right tackle?
Exactly.
Who knows? So Brady kind of brought this element. And I don't know, do you know how much time we have left?
I think we're good. It's still going.
Okay, because there's something I did want to say. Mm-hmm. The reason why I picked the Chiefs, or in picking the Chiefs, I feel like we underestimated Brady again, which is something I never thought I would do. And it's not because I didn't think he could play anymore or anything. I wasn't one of those people saying the Bucs weren't going to work this year. I thought they would be good. I didn't think they would be in the Super Bowl. But I wasn't saying Brady didn't have it anymore. People saying that Brady's arm had fallen off like Breeze did.
Yeah.
I didn't buy into that. Even though I wasn't saying that stuff, I didn't pick them to win the Super Bowl. No. I didn't even pick them to be in it. And once they did, I gave them zero chance to win.
Yeah.
And I'll fully admit that. And I think the thing that I was underestimating, kind of like I was saying, it wasn't Tom Brady's play that I was underestimating. It was the element and the mentality that Brady brings.
I completely agree with you.
And I kind of liken it to LeBron. Because I've been arguing with people that LeBron is the MVP right now. Mm-hmm. Because even though Jokic and Embiid and some other guys are putting up stats that are a little better, LeBron just brings this different element where he makes the team so much better. It's like this element of cohesion that when you watch the Lakers, LeBron's just in control of everything and everyone's buying it.
Yes. It's a sometimes thing, bro. It's you're buying into your leader.
Yeah.
And you look at other teams, I was watching this good not to interrupt you if you want to.
No, I'll finish my analogy later.
Okay. So it was just basically about the fall of Jacksonville. And it was talking about how, a couple years ago, Jacksonville was in the AFC Championship and they had Ramsey and Boye and they had this Saxonville defense, right? And they were, going to beat Brady. I think it was Brady, right? In the AFC Championship. I can't really remember. But I think the Patriots won that game and went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. No, I think that was the Eagles year, I think.
Yeah. So basically what it was just talking about is how teams like that live a short lifespan when you're built on something that isn't part of your buying into your leader or your quarterback's culture. You look at how bought in everyone was to what Brady brings to that team. You see the stuff coming out after, he was texting everyone every night at 11 p.m. saying, we're going to win this game.
Yeah.
He manifests he manifests and commands a certain level of energy, professionalism, and just a winning mentality that it doesn't happen anywhere else in the NFL. It truthfully doesn't, the way he does it. It's crazy.
And that's what I was kind of I mean, that's one of the things I had in mind was like him just going in kind of being like, I'm Tom Brady and we're winning this game. And
Yeah.
everyone from the players to the coaching staff were like, they just bought it. And they just had this confidence like they had all been there before and that they were just going to take care of business. And that's what Brady brought to the team. And obviously it wasn't all Brady, like we were saying before. But I'm just saying, I think he brought this like air of calmness that allowed the Bucs to just be a well-oiled machine, and everybody just did their job.
They didn't look up to that Chiefs Goliath and shiver, right?
Exactly, because they had Brady.
A guy that could look them right in the eyes and say, "We will beat you. We can beat you." And there are a lot of good teams in this league. You know, my Packers are one of them. The Saints, you name off teams, right? Great teams. You're telling me that Breeze would have gone in there and all those players would have felt the same way that they did with Tom going in there? It's just not the case. There are a few guys that you can really walk up to a Goliath like that, and you have Brady, you look them in the eyes and you think, we will win this game. And it allows, you're totally right, man. It brings a sense of calmness to the young players that they can really play with everything they have because they think they have a chance, like a real chance to win the game. You know, it's a pretty incredible thing.
And I think that's what gave them the edge, because like I was going in and like I said, I gave the Bucs no chance because like you can't. How can you stop the Chiefs? Like at some point you have to look up and just. And I think this is why it was smart for the Bucs not to do what I would have done and just not even tried to stop the Chiefs. Not you obviously try, but like don't try and build a game plan around stopping the Chiefs because you can't do it. They were like, no, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna win the game that way.
Yeah,
and that's just the way it is. Like that was smart because they weren't scared.
Yeah, and you have to give Brady credit too that every single time he commands this kind of. It's the same thing with LeBron. They command this calmness and then they deliver.
Yeah,
and you have to have both of those things for it to work, right? Like Brady by no means is the most talented QB in the league. No one's arguing that. But he delivers what he needs to every single time. And in doing that, he can command that kind of calmness and that excellence of everyone else because he does it every single time. And it's amazing that when you see a guy being able to step up to that pressure plate every time and deliver it every single time. It's unbelievable, except for against Eli twice. But
yeah, I mean, I'll always remember that. But one thing I did want to say, and like I'm not trying to slander your boy, but I think it's something that Rodgers is like. It makes me like. That's why when Rodgers got to the NFC Championship game, I kind of like in the back of my mind, because I wanted the Green Bay to go to the Super Bowl in that game, because if for no other reason than I had a bet from the beginning of the season that they would win the Super Bowl. But I in the back of my mind, I was like, I just don't know, because like it feels like whenever Rodgers gets to that game, there's always something, right? And I know you as a fan will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, and obviously, you know, if the Packers did a better job getting some receivers for Rodgers, maybe it'd be a different story. But I just is the difference between why somebody like Rodgers, who is probably the most talented QB, if not Mahomes, the most talented QB of all time, the difference between him and Brady, who like no one's gonna say that Brady would win a throwing competition with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers could chuck it out of the stadium, you know, in his day. But that's the difference. That's why he's the GOAT.
And you're right, man. I think when it comes to Rodgers, it's a very fine line to walk, I think, when it comes to how Brady commands the teams that I'll use the Bucs as the example. Because if he goes there and not everything that went his way goes his way, you're left in a very different boat as an organization where you've completely invested everything you've got into this working and it didn't work. At the same time, when it does work and you do get to the Super Bowl, there's a feeling that you have to accomplish that, right? Like this is the only time we've got Brady now, everything's clicking now, we got to do it. And what the Pack do, that's a problem, I think. But at the same time, like you could say it's not a problem. There's an argument both ways, right? And I'm a loyal soldier. I'll fall into place with what my GM is trying to do. But it's like, I like the Jordan Love pick for a lot of reasons. That I like that we have a QB in the system. I like that we're trying to do something different. But at the same time, it's like having that guy almost is a little reminder in the back of everyone's heads that we're not all in. That Rodgers isn't going out there and he's playing amazing. He deserved to be the MVP. But everyone kind of in the organization needs to go in with the same kind of mindset that Brady does of like, F it. we're winning. It doesn't matter. I don't care if we need a quarterback in a few years. I don't care about Aaron's extension. We're drafting a receiver. Then you know what we're doing? We're drafting like they need to just completely go in with everything they have, because if it's in Rodgers' mind that that's what they're doing, he'll play better. Adams will play better. Like everyone will just, not that they didn't play well. Like I'm a Packers fan sitting here. Like they got to the NFC Championship. But in those huge moments, we're not just playing the 10-6 Dolphins. We're playing Brady. We're playing guys like Mahomes. We're playing teams that are saying, F it, we're winning. And the Packers always seem to have one eye down the line of like what they're trying to do in the future at the same time as like winning. And it doesn't fully work like that. You have to just be fully invested into just doing it now.
Yeah, and I think that like ties into a great point. Another thing that we need to say about the Buccaneers is that their front office did a fantastic job at putting this roster together, because it's the point that you made. They had the past few years, if you go back and look at their drafts, they have drafted so well, and that they don't fall into the convention the NFL teams fall into, where it's like, oh, we have this position figured out, we think, so we're just gonna forget about that position and we're gonna look to the future. It's like, it's kind of what the Chiefs did this year, where they were like, oh, our roster's perfect, we can just draft a running back. And that was obviously a mistake looking back, because what if they drafted like a tackle or something, and like that could have maybe helped them out a little bit. Obviously, in a game like this, maybe it wouldn't have made a difference, but you see my point. Like
that question, right? Like,
yeah, you see my point. Like if you look back, like the Buccaneers, they drafted Tyler Johnson this year with like already Mike Evans and Scotty Miller and Chris Godwin, and like they just keep acquiring talent, and that's what you do to win. Like you don't be like, oh, I have 3 corners on my roster, I don't need to draft a corner. Just keep drafting players to try and win. Like that's what you do.
Yeah, it's frustrating, man.
It sounds simple, but it is. Like if you follow an NFL team closely, you know how frustrating it can be when they don't do that.
Absolutely. And it's what I think teams who have a chance in like the Bengals, the Chargers, the Jaguars, these teams that are about to have and do have in some cases their franchise guy, don't do the stupid shit that all these old NFC franchises do. Like, we've had success, right? Like it works. The Saints, it's worked for them for years. There's competitiveness, but it's like, there's this weird kind of like, I get the sentiment of remaining competitive all the time. I get what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to have a complete team and stay competitive, so you're like an established franchise. I get it. But at a certain point, it's like, just win. Just say, F it, sign everyone with your cap space. Who cares if you're in the bottom 5 teams in cap? If you're going to win, you do everything you can in the draft and free agency to just go out there and win. And it's what Tampa did, and it worked. It's a perfect example of it working. It's like, for example, like we can talk about your Giants for hours too, but like they, in this upcoming draft, do you want to see them draft a quarterback to try and change everything and move forward into a new direction? Or do you want to see them draft a middle linebacker? Like,
yeah, I think I agree with I definitely agree with your sentiment. But like to phrase it in a different way, I would always be like, if I were running an NFL franchise, I would always be aiming for the Super Bowl. I wouldn't be aiming to go, 10-6 and make it to the divisional round. I'm going for a Super Bowl, whatever
every year.
Like, I'm not trying to just be like a solid playoff team. I'm trying to win. And that's why it's like, I don't want to get into this too much and make it about an entire different topic.
No, it's okay.
It's why like I'm not a big fan of the Stafford trade for the Rams, in terms of what they gave up, because like I'm just thinking about it from a cost benefit point of view. It's like, I feel like the Rams are more likely to be rebuilding in a couple years than they are to have a couple of rings on their fingers. You know what I mean? And if that's the case, I'm not going to waste time screwing around with Matthew Stafford going 11-5 and being kicked out of the second round of the playoffs. I'm trying to win a Super Bowl. I'm not giving away 2 first-round picks that might help me do that. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And it's the same thing with like trading for Wentz. Like, yeah, the Colts need a quarterback. They're not going to be very good if they don't get one. But like, are you trying to be good or are you trying to be great?
And you know what, man? The question, like, I totally agree with you on the Wentz thing. The Stafford thing, I mean, maybe it's also just the sentiment of how good individually we think Stafford is.
I think Stafford's good. It's more the Rams for me. Like, I don't know if they're
right.
I don't know.
I hear what you're saying, man. I totally hear what you're saying about it. It's like, what I like about what the Rams did is it's like, they showed the stomach to really just say, yeah, we drafted Goff first overall. He's gone. We don't want him anymore. He proved that he wasn't it. We're not going to tinkle in this land of like trying to make it work with Goff because we paid him. No, get out of here. You're gone. You're not it. Let's bring in a new guy. And if the whole Stafford thing doesn't work out in a few years, like at least they had the gusto to try and like push and go for it, right? They need to be doing everything they can. They need to be calling Marvin Jones and saying, hey, Marvin, you want to come play with Stafford? You know, like they need to be calling Galladay. They need to do everything they can to make it work. The Stafford thing alone is not enough, right?
Yeah.
They need to do more than the Stafford thing to make it work. Where like you look at teams like I've been seeing the Bears connected to Wentz. What the hell are you doing?
What is the point of that?
What's the point? You're gonna go 8-8. You're not gonna accomplish anything. You're gonna have a worse season than you did this year because somehow they made the playoffs this year. That's not gonna happen next year. And it's like it doesn't lead you in a direction of like beating the best teams. And isn't that what everyone should be trying to like go for? It's just
I think like what it comes down to is like why obviously the Rams doing what they're doing wouldn't be as stupid as what anywhere close to as stupid as the Bears doing that. Yeah. But the reason why I kind of group it the same way is because it's like I look at the Rams and like I kind of project what they're going to look like next year, and I don't look at them and say, yeah, this team can beat the Chiefs or the Bucs or even like the Saints. I mean, who knows what the Saints are going to do at quarterback? But you see my point. It's like I don't look at that roster and be like, oh, this is like has a real good chance to win the Super Bowl. Like they have a good chance to compete, and they're definitely going to make the playoffs, and like if things go right. But it's like I don't know what you're giving up to, have this slightly higher chance is not worth it in my opinion. Like if they were getting like, I don't know, if they were trading for Aaron Rodgers, yeah, okay, I see why you're doing it.
Yeah.
But it's like if you're just going to get like a borderline top 10 guy with that roster, I don't know. What do you?
To me, it's the reason why the Deshaun, like we haven't talked about the Deshaun Watson stuff on the show. Maybe we could do a whole nother show about it. But to just like touch on it a little bit, it's like it's why I endorse any team trying to go for Deshaun Watson because
he's a different story.
That guy. It's a different thing. You're automatically and then you have to ask yourself the question, right? If he only wins 4 games on the Texans, how many games does he win on the Jets?
The Texans are pretty bad though.
Agreed, but it's not like some of the teams that are like the Jets are that much.
The Jets are kind of the exception. I agree with you. Like if Watson wants to go to the Jets, I would kind of question his decision making. Like they're definitely better than the Texans, but
it's like
But
at the same time, if you're the Jets, another analogy that I just thought about right now is like if you have the 2nd overall pick, right? And I think they have like, let's just say they have the 17th pick. I don't know what pick they have. Let's just say it's 17, right? You could either do 2 things. You could either say, I think Zach Wilson is going to be amazing. And I think he's going to be a game changer in our organization and helps us win a Super Bowl. Or you could do something silly, draft a guy at 2 who isn't a quarterback, and then draft like Mac Jones, 17, because
I hope that doesn't happen.
You're getting 2 good players rather than 1 good play.
That would be so bad.
You know what I mean? It's like
that would be almost worse than going with sticking with Darnold.
Yeah, it's like the sticking with Darnold thing.
Oh, I don't get that at all.
Sticking with if they pick like Devonta Smith too, and are like, we're gonna give him a Heisman winner, and we're gonna try. It's like no, get rid of Sam. You need a brand new quarterback in there that's actually good, not just immediate. You don't need another Sam. I'm not saying Mac Jones is another Sam. I don't hate Mac Jones at all.
He honestly looks a lot like Sam.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, why go for Mac Jones at 17 when you could go for a guy? I mean, maybe they think Mac Jones is that guy, but like when you could go for a Zach, if they think Zach Wilson is that guy, go for him at 2. Shoot for the stars, right? Like, don't.
I think that's what I would do. Yeah. I think that's what I would do. Like the Jets state of the roster, I wouldn't be trying to trade for Deshaun Watson because like they need a lot more than just Deshaun Watson to win.
Yeah.
Like we saw it in the Super Bowl, and that's kind of what we're tying into. Like this is all about like what it takes to win a Super Bowl for a franchise. And with the Jets, it's like we saw even Mahomes, the best quarterback in the league, can't do it when everything else around him sucks. You bring in Deshaun Watson and trade away everything else that you have to make the team better. What are you really doing? I like Zach Wilson more for that team, but like the ultimate point is like if I was a team in like ready to compete now, I would be trading the farm for Deshaun Watson, because it's not like a Matthew Stafford where you're like renting him for maybe 5 years,
Yeah.
probably at most. Like, this is a young quarterback under contract
Yeah.
who's proven to be elite.
Yeah.
Like with Matthew Stafford, you're hoping he can have an elite season, because
Yeah.
he never really has before. He's had a lot of really, really good seasons.
Yeah.
He's never been elite.
Yeah.
You know?
And Deshaun Watson is a different beast, because if you were to rank QBs going for, like, honest question.
He's probably number 2 for me.
Yeah, same. But would you rather, so other than Mahomes and him, would you rather have Deshaun Watson or the first overall pick?
I'd rather have Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I think Trevor Lawrence could be good, but it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't, right?
Yeah,
like, we don't
a bird in the hand.
Exactly. You don't exactly want to have a guy you don't know how good he's going to be when you could have Deshaun Watson's too, man. Like, you start getting into the top 2 of the most important position going. I mean, obviously, I'd take Rodgers over him in a 1-game scenario, but I'm talking about, like, for
franchise builder.
Franchise builder. You're the Niners, right? Like, you're the Niners, you're the Panthers, you're the Raiders. You do it. You don't even think about it. You sell everything to get this guy. You give as many picks as give 5 first-round picks. I don't care what it takes. You get this guy and you go to win a Super Bowl. That's what you do.
Yeah, here's the thing, man. The football nerd in me just coming out thinking about Deshaun Watson on the Niners, man. That'd be crazy. We're kind of like just going really off topic here, but I'm actually curious. I would definitely trade Nick Bosa in a trade for Deshaun Watson. I don't know about you, but like, I think Deshaun Watson is the second best asset, period, in the NFL right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would be, if that could make me give up less first round picks, which I can use to like as future pieces to build the roster. Like, I get Nick Bosa is a pretty good building piece, but like, if I can use it to get like a receiver or like a old lineman to help Deshaun or something like that instead, and like kind of take 2 picks off, because I'd rather have 2 picks than like Nick Bosa, probably.
Same.
As good as Nick Bosa is. So like, if that can take up the price down a little bit, I'll do it to get Deshaun
me
Watson.
Too. Bro, as crazy as it sounds, like, I know me and you share the sentiment a little bit that quarterback is just by far the most important position in the game. And so if you can lower the price on picks and give them a player that they like, that's a good, young, talented. Look at what
100%.
the Dolphins did with Minkah Fitzpatrick. They just traded him when they were rebuilding their entire team pretty much in 1 year. They just said, Cameron Wake, gone. Minkah Fitzpatrick, gone.
Yeah.
Kenyon Drake, gone.
And look, it worked.
Gone. It worked. They just said, we're not sticking around being 8-8, 9-7 with Tannehill and Kenyon Drake and all these other guys that they're not winning you anything. They're not going up against Mahomes and winning you jack. They're not doing that. They say, screw that. We're drafting to a top 5. We're completely rebuilding the team, and it worked in 1 season. So shoot for the stars, because you're going to land closer than you are to a Super Bowl than anything else. Even if you go 1-4, you know what, bro? Even if you do it and you fail completely and it doesn't work, you have another high pick. Do it again. Like, just keep shooting, because like, isn't that what we're all playing for in the end, is a Super Bowl?
100%. This is my whole mentality to approach the NFL. Like, I get it, and I've thought about this before. Like, I get to a certain degree why teams don't do it, because when you think about it, these are people with their job on the line.
Yes.
Like, they're playing for their jobs.
Yes.
Like, they can't really, like, I mean, maybe I don't know if I would probably do it, just because like I want like the football, like, what I know about football, just I would be too loyal to it probably. But like, and maybe to a fault, but these guys are trying to play for their jobs, is my ultimate point here. Like, they don't want to be taking these big sweeping risks. Like, they want to be conservative, and that's probably part of the reason why NFL organizations are so conservative.
Yes.
Is because their jobs are on the line. They need to, like, if they trade for Deshaun Watson, if they trade the future for Deshaun Watson and it fails, they're gone. And they won't be part of that future anyways.
And you look at a perfect example. I can't remember his name, and it's really bothering me that I can't. I think Sasha is part of his name, but it was the GM.
Sashi Brown?
Sashi Brown.
Yeah.
GM of the Browns before Dorsey. Dorsey obviously drafted like all the guys that, Denzel Ward, Mayfield.
With Sashi's picks, though.
But it was him, it was Sasha Brown that blew up the whole team and said, we're just rebuilding. And he got fired. Yeah. But it was his, like, if we were diehard Browns fans and we were talking right now on this show, we'd say God's credit to him, because he's pulled together all these pieces that we have that everyone's so excited that we have, it's because we sucked for like 2 years and he just got all these, and I'm not endorsing tanking by any means, but he actually just traded assets for picks.
It's not tanking, it's understanding where you are as a roster and what the best way to do things is. Because it's like, it ties into something like a lot of people want the Patriots to draft Mac Jones, but like the Patriots are going to be bad next year. They have a lot of old players. They have no receivers. If I'm the Patriots, I'm not drafting like a mediocre QB. I'm trying to build for when I get a much better QB because I know I'm not going to win next year anyways, you know?
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know who else it reminds me of? Why can't I? Oh, Sam Hinkie in the NBA.
Yeah.
Was that his name? The Sixers guy?
Yeah. I mean, we're probably mispronouncing it, but it's pretty close. So like,
yeah,
I know
it's close enough. You know, yeah, people know what I'm talking about. It's that kind of thing. Like, I think I mean, say what you want about the Sixers now. I mean, they look pretty good now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, tanking. I mean, it was deliberate tanking in the Sixers.
It was, but bro, it's like, if I'm a fan of a team, it's like it's just the sentiment of like, would you rather? Like, I would be horribly just hurt and upset if I was like, what's a perfect NFL team to just like throw under the bus right here? Like a middle of the pack, just like shitty team that just never does anything really exciting. Like
the Bengals.
The Bengals, they too bad? They're almost too bad. I'm talking about like almost like the Lions a little bit.
No, but they've been pretty bad too. Maybe like the Vikings are a good.
The Vikings are a good example. What are the Vikings? I would rather be a fan of a team. I'd rather be a Browns fan, even when they're dog water and have the hope of having the first overall pick every year after your dog water.
Been extending Kirk Cousins every
year. Why pick 23rd overall every year? Why pick 23rd overall? You're not getting a top guy. You're not getting a guy. You're drafting basically on positional value as well. That's not really pushing you anywhere forward. You've got like a QB that often in these situations is either old and washed and making too much money or young and sucks. They need to like, so you're not going anywhere with this shit, you know? It's just, I don't know. It's fun to talk about because I just love the league so much. And I think there are teams that are smart enough in the future that are going to be taking the steps that we're talking about. Like I'm a big believer in the Panthers, for example. I think they will do the right thing after Bridgewater to kind of move their franchise in a direction that will win. I don't know if the Niners will do it. I hope the Niners will do it. Well,
they seem like the kind of people that will. I mean, they were trying to get Stafford, so.
Yeah, they do seem like the kind of people that will. I mean, it's the teams that have the stomach for it, right? It's the Jets, it's the Niners. It's these teams that are like, that I think are ready to just say, let's just win. Let's just stop being dog water and let's just like use some of our assets here. Why do the Jets have top 5 cap space every season? Like, why do they not use it for anything? You know, like it just, I don't know. It's a fun conversation to have, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does tie. I mean, believe it or not, it does tie into the Super Bowl because this is why the Buccaneers are here because it was a really good, and you know, I harp on it all the time as a Giants fan. I want the Giants to just completely turn around what they do as a process because the Buccaneers proved that good roster building can win you a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that's you know, obviously the coaching in the Super Bowl
and the talent
was really good.
You're absolutely
but the roster building, like collecting talent and just like that's what it takes. And you don't build a good roster by like drafting a running back number 2 overall when your team sucks and you have an old quarterback. Like
no, you don't.
It comes down to that kind of thing.
You don't, and it's just like football is just the greatest thing ever because you can go deep into this rabbit hole of like, should you even be drafting RBs? But then there's the other side of it, like, you know, drafting RBs high. But then there's the other side of it, like, well, just draft tons of skill position players just to surround your guy. It really depends on mostly who your quarterback is, you know, and how your team is able to like push for a real contention spot. Because, you know, what would if the Vikings draft, I mean, they have Dalvin Cook, so it's a bad example, but if they didn't have him and they draft Najee Harris, what the hell are they doing, right? Like, it's the same sentiment. It's the same sentiment.
You think Najee Harris is going to win you a Super Bowl with Kirk under center? I don't want to slander Kirk too much because he's a fine
yeah. No, but you're right. You're right, though. Like,
my point stands.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Even with Justin Jefferson and Najee Harris, Kirk's not winning you dog water, so you're not really going anywhere with that. Well, I'll tell you what. We should do, before this video times us out, I don't know how it's even still going, to be honest. Let's do I've had a couple ideas of videos we can do. Let's do a mock draft. So we'll have that coming soon, because that'll be super fun. We both love mock drafts, not only for our teams, but just for the whole league. Yeah. Mock drafts rock. We'll put trades in our mock drafts too. We'll make it a fun one.
Hell yeah.
We can do like a rookie ranking coming into of this upcoming class. And then I also still want to do a head coaching video where we kind of go over just the coaching changes that have happened so far. Before this thing cuts us off, about the coaching thing, did you watch any of the David Culley press conference?
No, I thought you were going to say the Eagles guy.
No, I not the Eagles guy.
I don't even, what's his, David Culley, he's the Texans
head coach. So
no, I didn't watch it.
I would just go to the viewers too, anyone who's still watching at this point, go check it out, because I've watched most of the coaches introductory press conferences this year. His is so bad and like awkward, and like you're just like sitting there like, oh god, like what are they doing? And it is not, if you're Deshaun Watson watching that, you are not feeling hopeful. He seems like he's a nice guy. What's that, sorry?
Doesn't inspire confidence for
no,
Deshaun.
He doesn't even talk. He talks about like nothing, but like a lot of things at the same time. Like I really, really liked, and once again, we can save this for the coaching video, but the Chargers hire, when I watched his introductory press conference, Brandon Staley, I really liked what he was talking about, and just kind of, he inspired hope in Chargers fans that they can go in a like prosperous direction. David Culley, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I don't know what the hell they're doing with that, because
Yeah, but when we do maybe we can do like a season prediction video or something and talk about the coaches a little bit for the new teams.
Totally.
But yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't even think of a coaching hire that I liked. I always wait to judge the coaches until they actually like, do games and we see what their tendencies are.
Yeah.
It's like why I didn't understand why people were hating on Joe Judge when we knew nothing about him before he was hired.
Yeah.
And it turns out he looks like a decent coach at least.
Yeah, he does.
So like I'm not gonna say, Nick Sirianni or whatever the Eagles coach's name is gonna suck because he stuttered in his press conference.
Completely agreed.
But I don't like going into things. I don't know if there's one that I really liked. I thought they were all kind of underwhelming.
Yeah,
off the top of my head, maybe there's one I'm not thinking of.
No, you're thinking. You're probably.
Oh, I kind of liked the Falcons one. Arthur Smith.
Yeah. Well, we'll dive into this in the coaching video, not to drag this one out too long. It is supposed to be about the Super Bowl, but I just more wanted to mention the David Culley thing in regards to the Deshaun Watson thing, right? Because they want to get the Deshaun thing has to be resolved before the season starts. So we can't
probably before the draft.
Yeah, totally before the draft, because then you're losing all your capital, right? Like let's do a Deshaun video. Anyway, I'm going to cut this here so we don't go too deep into this.
That's really organized.
Yeah, very organized. You heard me mention a few things that are probably coming soon on the football front, but thank you for watching. And the Bucs won the Super Bowl. Brady's got 7. Pretty crazy. We will see you next time. See ya.